So, Skinamarink is a micro-budget horror film about a house where things keep disappearing. The doors disappear, the windows disappear, the toilet disappears, and weird stuff starts happening in the house, like toys go on the ceiling. Like people start disappearing. There's some weird entity throughout the house, and the way that I'm describing this film, like, it makes it sound like it's just going to be like another haunted house type movie. In fact, if you look at the budget, the budget for this film, it's very small. It's about like $15,000, which, if you might recall, that was around the same budget for like Paranormal Activity, which was also a very micro budget film. Big word of mouth, got a lot of people talking about it, and it became a big hit after that. The thing is, like, Paranormal Activity was more interesting, I think, from the fact that just the fact that the scares work so well for being so minimal. And Skinamarink is very much a minimal film. I would dare say it's like almost kind of like an avant-garde type film, just for the way that it's framed and the way that it's paced. Like, to the point, I'd pretty much say, like, avant-garde might be too much. Maybe, I guess experimental would be the best way to describe it. But the thing is, like, Skinamarink is more than just its frights, and I think it's because this is a film that feels like a real nightmare in the sense that you are completely disoriented the entire time. Because, like, the plot of Skinamarink is kind of all over the place, and that feels very much by design. Like, and I think this is mostly just because of the way the film is shot. Like, the film is shot as just like a series of like pillow shots. Like, if you're familiar with like how like Yasujiro Ozu or Tarkovsky would like shoot his films, or he just like focus on like other stuff in a scene to kind of like dice to give you a sense of like the environment and also kind of like break up the rest of the film. Skinamarink is a film of like all pillow shots. You get shots of the carpet. You're looking down the hall. You never get like a perfect shot of like the characters here. Like, you always see like the characters' feet, or you hear them off to the side, or you're behind them. You see their backs. You never quite see them. And so apparently the premise of the film is that it takes place in the 1990s, where two children, have just, one of the children has just endured a problem where they were sleepwalking, and they woke up and they hurt themselves, and they had to go to the hospital, and they came back and they were apparently fine. So after that, the two kids basically, they get up, they watch cartoons, they play with toys, and and we don't really, like I said, we really don't see much of them. We mostly just see their feet, or we see like their toys moving. We see the television on. We hear them talking about like, oh, I think I heard mom and dad upstairs, or, hey, can you go get something from the kitchen? Just little nothing bits of dialogue here. And just the way that it's framed is just, it's pretty frightening. And I think it's just because of the absence of fully grasping what is going on within this house is the scariest part. And also because, like, it's weird how this film kind of like taps into this very cerebral aspect of like, experiencing a nightmare for yourself. And I feel like the best way to talk about this, because you're going to hear a lot of people talking about how horrifying this film was, how deeply, deeply scary it was. And I feel like I need to stress that when I say this film is scary, I don't mean it's scary in the sense like, like a slasher film where it's like someone with a knife is going to be behind the next door, or like a supernatural type terror where there's a ghost bumping things. Like, there's definitely a like spiritual force here that's like manipulating the house. Like, that's for sure. But you never learn much about it. You never quite see it. You hear it, you understand a little bit of what it's doing, but there's also just like this complete randomness to it. And the film it jumps all over the place in time and where characters are and how characters interact. Like, we follow like the two kids, I think their names are Kevin and Kaylee. We learn like not that much about them. We know that they're kids. We know that they watch cartoons. We know that they play with toys, and we know that one of them has a problem with sleepwalking. And I feel like in order to talk about how this film scares you, you kind of have to leave a part of yourself in how you talk about it being scary. Like if I were to like talk about other horror films such as It, I could tell you like a scary moment, like where the clown comes through the film projector. Big scary clown, its teeth, its claws, it's coming to kill the kids. Scary, ooh. If I were talking about stuff like, Annabelle, the doll's in the room and the doll kind of moves. Talk about Poltergeist, the creepy clown, all these little elements. To talk about what scares me with Skinamarink is to tap into something like deeply frightening about yourself and your own nightmares. Like full disclosure, I have had night terrors. And I feel like for anyone who has had night terrors or is kind of like terrified of, having problems trying to sleep and terrified of going to sleep, this is very much going to frighten you on that level. And I think what adds to it is just so much of the focus is on like the carpet. And I love the way that it's framed because they want to frame that like the carpet is just littered with toys. And then next thing you know, the toys are on the wall, then they're on the ceiling, and everything is just cluttered. But the way that everything is filmed in this movie is that it's all grainy. It's meant to be just so grainy that it looks old, and you can't really tell what is, like you can't quite make it out. It feels like it has like that feeling of like dreams that are like, you have a vision in your mind, but like it's not quite present, and it feels like there's something clouding it, and that you're, like it feels real, but it's not quite real. It's like it's so hard to describe. It's one of those things that like you almost have to just like to see to understand what it's tapping into and what makes it so frightening. Because one of the things that used to scare me about like trying to go to sleep was that I would always keep staring at the carpet, and I would always imagine that like the carpet was moving, that like if I wasn't watching it, like something in it might be moving, that there might be some presence there, that just that there's something there. And so much of the shots that focus on the carpet with like the graininess makes you feel like there's something there. And it was just so disorienting and chilling that I could not look away from this film. It's like, and it was terrifying. It's like, I made the mistake of watching this late at night, and I knew that like immediately after this, I had to like throw on something like a little bit more fun, like the Venture Brothers, or watch some like Freakazoid, because I knew that if I went to sleep directly after watching this film, I'm not going to bed. I'm not going to make it through the night. Like, I know, like, that's kind of like the golden rule, like, you never watch a horror film right before you're about to go to sleep. But Skinamarink, I really need to stress that here. Because even if, like, nothing in Skinamarink scares you, chances are it's probably going to creep into your memory later. Mostly just because, like, the horror is really understated here. Like, there is some violence, there is some bloodshed, there is some implication about characters losing mouths and characters stabbing themselves in the eye. But you never quite see it all. It's always kept off to the side, and you never quite see it. And that's the best way I can describe it, kind of like akin to a nightmare, where it's, it's a dream where you don't feel like you have full control of, and yet at the same time, you don't feel like you're seeing everything, and you wish you could, but like you can't. And that's especially true when you get to the end of the film, in which Kevin actually does see a face of the actual entity controlling the house and making everything disappear. And the footage is so grainy that you cannot tell, what this entity looks like. And Kevin tries to ask, like, who are you? Why are you doing this? And there's no answer. Just nothing. You get no answers to any of this, to why this is happening. And it feels just like nightmares. Like, just it's terrible things happening, and you can't find any rhyme or reason for it, and you feel like it's out of your control. Um, and it's especially true, like how the film frames the kind of the passage of time. Like it always feels like it's dark out, and that could be just because all the windows and doors disappeared. But they also like showcase that like 500 days pass at one point, and there's no change in how like Kevin is as a child. Like he's still kind of just present and trying to figure out the house. And it's like, oh wait, why are the doors upside down? And where's the toilet? And what happened to Kaylee? And wait, didn't I stab myself? Wasn't there blood on the carpet? And didn't it keep happening over and over and over again? And all these bizarre and surreal moments that just creep into your mind, and it's just fascinatingly scary. And the fact that the film could do this on such a small budget, it is by far one of the scariest films I've seen in years. Like there's horror films I love, but this is one of those films that's like, I don't think I could go back and watch this. I feel like on a second watch I might be able to better process it, but after that first viewing, I was so chilled by this. I was terrified to go to sleep that night. Now I do have preferences though. This film is slow moving. Like it's under 2 hours, but it slowly like goes along with like like this creeping fear of having lost control and being trapped within a nightmare that you're not quite sure where any of this is going. And if you don't like those types of like slow burn horror films, this is not going to be for you, because I know with all like the word of mouth that's probably going to happen with Skinamarink, you're going to get a lot of people recommending it, and you're going to get those people who just go to like haunted house movies and like the Conjuring type films, and they're going to be like, I don't know what everyone's talking about. Why is this scary? It's just a house, and just the toys go up in the ceiling, and we don't see the kids. I don't know. It's like it's trying to be artsy fartsy, whatever. But so for the people who want everything spelled out for them in a film, this is not for you. This is definitely not your type of horror film. But if you love a horror movie that can place you in the mindset of a nightmare where you've lost all control and you don't quite know what's happening, and there's some great scares in this too, not just from like the blood and like the seeing stuff disappear, which is scary enough in itself. Like being trapped in a house where like the door's gone is frightening in and of itself. But there's also just like kind of jump scare moments. Like the audio is so off here. Like sometimes the kids will speak loudly enough where you can clearly understand them, and it dominates the room. And other times there's scenes where the dialogue is so low that they have to put in like subtitles to let you know what everyone is saying. And then other times, just like probably the scariest moment in the film, which I'll warn people about, is at one point Kevin tries to call the police, but the phone transforms into one of those like toy phones with the face. And at one point, just inexplicably, the phone's eyes will just move in like a jump shot and then ring and have like I believe like the smile gets bigger too, and then the lights will go out and all you can see is the eyes of the phone. So just all those moments of like all those like kind of like jump scary moments I feel like are great. Like a lot of people are gonna say I don't like jump scares. The thing is, I don't mind jump scares if there's something legitimately terrifying about them. And there is in Skinamarink. Every jump scare feels like there is something terrifying going on, and that you don't have any control of what's going on in this house. So on that level, on this very surreal and cerebral level, I absolutely love Skinamarink, and it's one of the scariest horror films that I've seen in a long, long time. It's not going to be everyone's type of scary movie. I need to preference that. I like if you could not get through like stuff like Stalker, let's say, that are like slow burn films, especially like, a lot of people are probably just going to see like, oh, it's under 2 hours. Trust me, this is a slow burn horror film that you really need to be in the right mood for. And if you're in that mindset where, nightmares and, the thought of like going to sleep and like having no control over your own house is terrifying to you, then this is definitely one of the scariest films that I've ever seen on such a small budget. And all the credit needs to be given here to Kyle Edward Ball, who turns in one of the scariest films of this year.